Keep it simple, silly. Here are some ways that I simplify my songs without compromising on quality or the fullness of the sound, making it sound perfect on Spotify and things like that. And I've perfected this over the last 2 years, over 2 years actually, and even longer because I've been making music for so many people, but I've been releasing music as an artist myself for the last 2 years, one every 2 weeks. So I have to make songs quickly. And my big focus and big push is building up my Spotify presence and things like that. So I am making stuff that is suitable for the platform. So I'm going to show you what I've done and what I am doing currently and how I structure my songs, and we'll go over some bits and pieces. We're going to look at things like arrangement. We're going to look at sound selection. We're going to look at the performance, a bit of production trickery, and I think that just about covers it. So let's dive right in. So you can see my project here. If I actually close up all my bus channels here, this is the arrangement. This is how I arrange most of my songs. We have drums, we have bass, we have the melodic bus, the melodic section. So this is like the mid section where you might have pianos and guitars. I do also have a separate guitar bus here. I guess this would fall under kind of the mid section. We then have a vocal bus. This is like a vocal effects, a lead vocal bus, and then BVs. So essentially we have vocals, we have our mid instruments, our bass, and we have our drums. So in total, 4 sections. I've just divvied them up slightly differently for the purposes of mixing. So that's the first thing, is I keep the arrangement instrumentally of my songs really, really simple. They all follow the same format. If you listen to almost every single song, certainly a modern pop Western song, it's going to have all these elements. It's going to have the bass, the drums, the mids, the vocals, right? So that's the first thing. The next thing that is super important is sound selection. Now, to me, the good backbone of any recording is drums. And so I like to, if I'm going to spend time on a song or any part of the song, it's going to be the drums, because I want the drums to sound incredible. If I solo them here and just show you what's going on when it comes in. Now, you can't deny that this drum kit sounds, number one, awesome, but number two, it just has a great groove. That's a whole separate thing, but the sounds are really, really cool. They're really nice. They're just right. And so we have a kick drum here. This is laid up with 2 kicks. We have this top one. So you hear that's the little top end of a kick, and then we have the meatier part of the kick there. Put them both together. You get a nice full sound there. The snare, again, I do the same thing. This is how I get my sounds sounding the way that I want. So we've got a couple of layers here. It seems like I did have this snare in, but I decided to take that out for some reason. Yeah, to me, it was a bit too much. I wanted the snare to be tight, and so this is what we got. This is a really nice rim sound. This is something I made some time ago. It just sounds great. And then we have a little snare roll. This gives a sense of realism. Just adding little bits of articulation like that can just sound really, really awesome. I also like to spend time processing my sounds and getting them sounding good. So, for example, on the snare here, I threw in some frequency shifter and took it down in frequency. So I'm not changing the pitch. I'm actually shifting the frequencies physically down. This makes it sound a bit fuller. And then we have some transient shaping and some distortion. And these things will help give you the full nice sound that you're looking for. Okay, you want to kind of dial in the thing that you want. So that's the first thing, is sound selection. I did exactly the same with the hi-hats here, no different. Again, we've got our various plugins doing a lot of heavy lifting to make sure that the sound is clean, and obviously then a strong groove. So to me, if you're going to spend time on anything, spend time on your drums. If you can get them sounding good, you can have a shoddy sounding guitar, because the drums will, kind of help that, if that makes sense. And if I then look at the other instruments, so although I just said them having a shoddy sounding guitar, the drums can save it. I believe that to be true, but that doesn't mean you then want to fall short on your other instruments. So if we take a look, for example, at the acoustic guitar here, and I play this. You can't deny that it sounds good. So if I just show you the top one here, so this is kind of the main chord pattern here. If I just take away the effects I've got on it, all of them, including the bust effects, this is how it sounds. You can hear that the quality of it is just, it sounds good, right? So the recording quality, how I captured it, I used my Aston mic here. This is the Aston Origin. I love this mic, and this is the one that I used to record it. And to me, it's solid. It works well, and I placed it, you know, probably about, I don't know, 4, 5, maybe 6 inches away from, you know, the guitar, the whole of the guitar. To me, I like to treat my microphones like an ear, you know. It's not going to be right up on the guitar, but it's going to be a bit further away. And I sort of apply that to anything that I'm miking. And then I will listen back to it to then pay attention and go, okay, yeah, no, it sounds a little bit tinny. Maybe I need to change the mic placement. So I'm not afraid to redo a take if I think it sounds bad. The benefit of having worked in this room for so many years now, I know what sounds good, right? So you will pick that up in your space as well. You'll learn to know what sounds good. So capture it right from the source, record it well, and you will be absolutely fine. Same goes for vocals as well. If I just dive into here, if I just show you everything without my mixing stuff on it here.
Don't say you ain't sorry. Don't say it. Don't say you ain't sorry.
So you can hear that's the raw vocal bar, the tuning that I did on like my first stage of vocal editing. That's a whole separate topic. But you can hear that it just sounds clean, right? It's clean. There's no background noise. There's no reverb from the room coming in. So again, it was recorded well, and it gave me a really good foundation to build from. So recording quality of your instruments, make sure it is as good as you can get it. And this again just makes everything so much better later on down the line. The next thing I'd like to look at is the performance. So I kind of touched on this just now with the vocal, but essentially, is it clean? Is it a clean performance? So both recording wise, you can hear that the vocal had no reverb in the room. But also when I'm talking about clean, I'm talking about, was the performance clean? So let's go back to my guitar here. If I, again, just showing you the raw guitar here. Can you hear how it's clean, right? So this wasn't, I can't remember if this was a one take thing or not, but I think I might have comped a couple of bits, right? And I went over the take 4 or 5 times to get it right, because I occasionally got some fret buzz on some of the slides and some of the different chords. So I wanted to avoid that. I wanted this to be clean. And I knew if I got it clean then at the source, it's going to work better in later on, because I'm not having to fix anything, right? I just want to be able to mix it as opposed to fix it, okay? I'm going to coin that phrase. Fix it, don't mix it. Because then when I do add my effects, when I do mix it and add my EQs and compressions, it's going to sound so much better. So record it well at the source. And the same goes for like my piano performances here. Now this is MIDI, so it's a bit more forgiving because you can drag stuff around, but I still want to play things expressively. At the end of the day, there's velocity control on my keyboard here. I want to make sure that what I'm getting is just lovely. It sounds authentic. It sounds real. And I'll just play you a snippet of this. So everything you're hearing is really intentional. I absolutely wanted to do that in the performance. I wanted to make it clean. I wanted everything to happen when it did, right? So everything was intentional. I didn't just wing it, so to speak, or jam it out. Maybe that's how I started, but then I refined after that. So is it clean? Is the performance clean? And again, just touching on the point before, make everything sound good at the source. There's also some things you can do with some production trickery. So one of my favorite things to do, and I don't know if enough people do this, but what I like to do is in the verses, I like to make everything narrow, and in the choruses, I make it wide. So we go more mono in the verse, stereo in the chorus. And a prime example would be, say, the guitars again. So let me just put all my effects back on here so we can just hear it in context. In my verse section, which is just here,
I tried to give myself over.
Right? You can see that I've just got my one guitar track here, and this guitar is mono, so it's not stereo. I then introduce this stereo guitar, which I'll just solo here. Now, if you're listening on good speakers or you have headphones on, you'll hear that the guitar is a little bit more spread. So if I play the mono guitar and then introduce stereo, you'll hear how it sounds bigger. Suddenly, the sides of my ears are being filled with this lovely guitar melody that's being played. And it's very simple. It's just a little triad that I'm playing on the guitar, as you can hear. And I like to try and apply that to a lot of other things. So I'll do that with my vocals. Obviously, my lead vocals, I typically keep mono anyway, unless I'm doing a very particular creative effect. But I keep all that in the middle. And then I'll introduce a vocal that is maybe stereo. So a prime example is the impact into the chorus here. Let me see, I think it's this one here. That one. That's got some reverb on it here, Valhalla, which is nice and wide, okay? And it just, you know, if you listen to the lead vocal into the chorus here,
You were mine.
certainly the tail end of the reverb, again, it opens out. So it makes everything feel more epic. So think about some of the things that you can do in your song to take it from mono into stereo. Another thing I like to do, production trickery wise, is I like to take away the bass. And I don't mean completely take away the bass. You can see that my brown bus here in the verse, which is this whole section here, you can see that I've still got my bass here, and then I have a separate track for a different bass here. Now, these are the same basses, but I'll show you the only difference is I'm adding this EQ. So if I just solo the bass here and play the verse part, you can see here that I'm actually cutting the bottom end here. Right, so you see it's getting really low there, and then back up there. I'm taking that away. When we go into the chorus bass, and I'll just open up an EQ so we can check it, you'll see that because I don't have a low cut, all the low end energy is back in, just here. There you go. So you can hear it's much thicker, much meatier. If you take a listen now from the verse into the chorus here, take a listen to how the subbiness comes through.
'Cause you were my pride and I was gonna be your guy. And now it kills me, you were mine.
Don't say you ain't sorry. Don't say
You can hear how everything spreads. You can hear how the bass comes in and provides the richness. And it's the oldest trick in the book, but if you're not doing it, you need to. That is another way to keep your song simple, but introduce things sounding bigger in the chorus. Less is more, as they always say. So in the verses, take some of the bottom end of your bass away so that when it comes back in the chorus, it really hits you and it sounds impactful. And the other thing that I like to think about as well is the contrast. So dry instruments supported by sort of long washed out verby instruments. My personal taste is I prefer drier sounds. I prefer things to be quite intimate. So my vocal, you will typically hear that it's very dry a lot of the time.
I only put my borders down for you. Thought I was safe in the arms of you.
Like that. Obviously, there's a bit of delay on it, but the reverb is very minimal, if any at all. Let me have a little look. It is really subtle. I think I'm not even using it. I'm just using the quarter note delays with CLA vocals there. And I want that to be really upfront because it's the lead vocal and it's quite an intimate song. But then that is contrasted by the ad-libs, which I showed you just before, these ones. So this is in the verse. And then we have the chorus We have that. And having those against the dry lead vocal, I don't know, just sounds really nice to me. It gives a new sound, a new dimension that we haven't heard yet. If the lead vocal is dry and then you introduce something wet, it's going to sound crazy. It's going to sound spacey, atmospheric.
I tried to give myself over.
Yeah. So that is something you can do. Think about how you can contrast your dry instruments versus your wet instruments, okay? Now, moving on, that is basically most of what I like to do in the production itself and arranging the track. I do want to go over just a little bonus tip here, which is actually looking at the top line specifically, so the things that I actually sing. Now, this song, if I take away all the vocals here, it's a very simple song. It is simply 3 chords throughout the entire thing. Chord 1 here. Chord 2. Down to chord 3 there. Okay, so 3 chords throughout the entire song. That is both verse and chorus. So how do we create interest in that? And we do that with the top line. And this is something that I really like to focus on a lot. Again, going back to this idea of contrasting, my verses are relatively monotone. They're relatively linear, okay?
Did you ever give a second thought? Did you even think about me?
Did you even think about me? So you can see that I'm kind of sitting on this note here. I'm sitting around and it's not moving loads. I then add a little bit of melodic movement in the second part of the verse just here.
I tried to give myself over.
But you can also hear that the difference in the first part of the verse, where I was singing more consistently, da 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 da, to then the da da, where I then hold the notes. Again, that's another bit of contrast. So it sounds new to the listener. We then move into the chorus, which I used a vocal sample for this from a pack that I did with 91 vocals, and it sounds insane. You can find this on Splice and stuff. It's called You Ain't Sorry. It's a phrase. And this is a more melodic thing that the artist sang. You can hear that she's moving a lot more with the vocal. So again, that provides another contrasting part to the top line. In the second verse, I pretty much keep it similar at the beginning.
They say you never needed them, but where's the truth now when it's all messing with my head?
So again, relatively linear, but then we move over to this bit.
Wanna get it out, cause I'm blue right now. I'm so over it now.
And this is, to me, the climax of the song. There's 2 climaxes. There's this part, and then there is the outro, which I'll show you in a sec. But essentially, I'm taking my voice to a whole new place. I'm sort of accessing a register that I've not yet performed in the song. So again, you've got the contrast of the lower, chilled out vocal, and then you have the more epic, sort of screaming vocal. To contrast even more, I go towards the end here and I go into my falsetto, which we have heard a bit in the song, but not fully. And this is what happens.
Don't say you ain't sorry. Don't say it. Don't say you ain't sorry. No.
So I'm singing exactly the same melody as the vocal phrase here, but I'm just singing it in my falsetto. Again, we've not heard that yet. The listener hasn't heard it. And obviously I'm introducing some strings here as well. So nice, simple with the piano. And again, it just takes the listener to a whole new place. So you can see that all the elements that make up the song are actually really, really simple, okay? Keep it simple, silly. But the way that it's been constructed makes it sound like it's constantly moving, constantly evolving. And with some production trickery, we make things sound bigger than what they are. So hope you found this video useful. If you want to see more of this kind of stuff, like and follow for more, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.